Welcome in this video of the House of Asian Cinema. Amongst a very rich filmography of Jackie Chan, Project A is often considered as one of his very best films. Despite this high status, the difficult production of the film is not very known. By reviewing it in this video, a question will take shape. Who is the real author of Project A? Let's first rewind to have a better idea of what Project A meant in Jackie Chan's career. In 1978, the stuntman finally became a star thanks to the commercial success of the two kung fu comedies directed by Yuen Woo-ping for seasonal films, Snake in the Eagle's Shadow and Drunken Master. Back under the leadership of Lo Wei, he kept the ball rolling with another financial success, his directorial debut, Fearless Hyena. But his new status strained even more the already difficult relationship between the two men. Logically, Golden Harvest managed to snatch Jackie, starting a partnership which would last over 20 years. And success kept coming with another kung fu comedy, The Young Master. Having become a superstar, Golden Harvest sent him to the USA with the intent to take over the local market, an ambition at the heart of the studio strategy since Enter the Dragon. Unfortunately, the attempt was a failure. Battle Creek Brawl was a mediocre action film from the subpar Robert Clouse. And if the Cannonball Odyssey fared much better at the box office, Jackie Chan only had a supporting part. Back in Hong Kong after this setback, the star worked on his new film, Dragon Lord. But once again, it ended up as a semi-disappointment. The film made good sales on the foreign market, but got a disappointing box office in Hong Kong. Consequently, Jackie Chan entered Project A with a slightly damaged status because of his repeated setbacks. The unsatisfying result of Dragon Lord was the main factor behind the rethinking on how to approach Jackie's next project. Edward Tang, the scriptwriter assigned to Chan by Golden Harvest, reflected on why the previous film didn't achieve the expected result and came to the conclusion that the time period chosen for the film was the culprit, and Jackie Chan needed a new image. Thus, he decided to set his new project at the end of the 19th century and to make the martial clown a policeman fighting against the pirates. Piracy was a reality of Hong Kong well before it became a British colony, since the middle of the Ming Dynasty. Its many islands, there are more than 250, were ideal to offer the freebooters opportunities to escape the authorities. They were even nicknamed at some point the Islands of Thieves. The most famous of them all was without a doubt Tseng Po Tsai. Adopted son of another famous pirate leader, Cheng Yi, Tseng Po Tsai, alongside his mother-in-law, inherited the pirate confederation set up by his elder. Under his command, the fleet prospered, reaching at its peak a size of 1,800 ships. Its success made him the scourge of the Qing, but also the Portuguese and the English. After several violent encounters, Tseng Po Tsai gave up piracy in exchange for an official position in the Qing army, a kind of trade between Chinese authority and powerful criminals, which was fairly common back then. All the films produced in Hong Kong and dealing with pirates take inspiration one way or another from Tseng Po Tsai. That was the case of Chang Chi's The Pirate, which original Chinese title is Tseng Po Tsai, of Choi Ark's Once Upon a Time in China 5, or of Chung Kwok-ching, King of the Sea. Captain So Feng, played by Chow Yun-fat in Gore Verbinski's Pirates of the Caribbean, is also partially based on the famous Hong Kong pirate. Lo San Po, the main antagonist from Project A, is no exception. But the retirement from active piracy by Tseng Po Tsai didn't put an end to the phenomenon. New freebooters sprang out, even if none of them managed to gather a comparable fleet. When the United Kingdom took over Hong Kong in 1841, piracy remained a constant threat for the colony's prosperity until the 1930s. The boarding and capture of the English boat in the film is inspired from what happened in 1890 to SS Namoa, when pirates kidnapped 5 Europeans and 240 Chinese. The event shocked the colony and pushed the local authorities to increase their effort to fight against piracy. It is in this context Project A is supposed to take place. Edward Tang wrote a script titled Battle in High Sea, quickly renamed Project A in order not to give any idea to the competition in case of leak. Shooting of the film started in the middle of 1982, between Hong Kong and Macau, the Portuguese colony providing a backdrop more fitting for the Hong Kong at the turn of the century. To Jackie Chan's initiative, the direction was given to the Taiwanese filmmaker Ting Shan-si. But during the course of the shooting, the relationship between the director and his star deteriorated, seemingly because of the lack of knowledge of the director when it came to action. Less than a month after the shooting had started, Ting was removed. His exact contribution to the film remains unclear to this day, but he seems to have mostly worked on the early scenes depicting the Hong Kong Coast Guards and police rivalry and at the Hoover Club. Jackie, now in full control, he could fully develop his own ideas. He came up with a long bike chase sequence after noticing the extreme popularity of BMX. A trendy idea back then. Lau Kar-leung did the same in his Lady is the Boss, released at the beginning of 1983. But it was mostly the scenes taking place on the sea which proved to be the most difficult to shoot for Jackie and his crew. The flow of the water made the shooting of the action scenes complicated, and the passing typhoons didn't help either. As it was usually the case in the industry back then, the script was modified during the shooting, as shown in this on-set Japanese report in which we see Yuen Bu infiltrate the pirate hideout by hiding in a barrel, an idea which would not appear in the final version of the film. After almost 1 year of shooting, Jackie had only finished 1/3 of the film. Leona Ho, in charge of supervising productions at Golden Harvest, stepped in and asked Sammo Hung to assist Jackie in order for the film to be released for Christmas 1983. Jackie had already asked for Sammo's help at the beginning of the shooting, but after 1 day on the set, the action director had decided to leave considering there were too many directors involved for one film. Now back, he found himself working behind the camera slightly over 2 months. Sammo's involvement brings 2 questions. First, was he supposed to appear in the film from the start of the project, or his presence grew from this supervision part? In his latest biography, Jackie says Sammo was supposed to appear since the start of the project. But some questions remain. With Jackie's tendency to shoot for a very long time, already proven on The Young Master and Dragon Lord, and a hyperactive Sammo, it's hard to imagine the Big Brother would have willingly put himself at the complete disposal from his former Beijing Opera classmate. We can seriously wonder if his part was not upgraded thanks to his constant physical presence on the set. Second, who was in charge between Jackie and Sammo? According to Edward Tang, also assistant of Jackie during the shooting, and some of the stuntmen involved in the film, Jackie was still the one calling the shots, and the 2 men had an harmonious collaboration, without much need for direct communication. But some other stuntmen also admitted that the Singa band, Jackie's stunt team, and the Unga band didn't mix, and Sammo had a tendency to shoot himself the scenes in which his character was involved. In a Dick Wise interview, the actor explained it was Sammo who had chosen him to play the part of Lo San-po. That makes sense. He was then a regular of his team. It's also worth noting the respective status of the 2 men. Both of them were stars of Hong Kong cinema, but Jackie was on a roll of partial disappointment while Sammo was still ascending. The Big Brother was also sent directly by Golden Harvest to put some order in the troublesome shoot. Moreover, because of their childhood at the Beijing Opera Academy, Sammo had a natural authority toward his mates. We can ponder if Sammo had a greater influence than advertised on the making of the film. This influence seems obvious in the final. Until then, Hong Kong action cinema had the habit of having long fight scenes to conclude the films. Jackie was following this trend with his fight against the Korean superkicker Wong Il-sik in The Young Master and Dragon Lord, lasting each more than 15 minutes. Sammo had also respected this tradition but started breaking conventions in 1981 with his Prodigal Son, which final fight only lasts 5 minutes. In Project A, the final barely lasts 6 minutes. Sammo's style is also noticeable when it comes to impacts and the direction. For example, for Sammo's dropkick on Dick Wei, a favorite of the Big Brother, the former Taiwanese army captain wasn't warned by the choreographer and ended up being wounded. Still, Sammo doubled down and did another take with Paul Wong doubling Dick Wei. It happened only once, the stuntman being convinced he would end up dead if a second take had to be made. This school of maximum impact is a characteristic of Samo's style. Footage from the September 1983 Japanese on-set reporting go in the same direction, as we can see Samo giving instructions to the crew and actors. It is when Samo was involved that Jackie ended up doing his famous clocktower stunt. Frightened after a test had left a dummy in a bad shape, Jackie had delayed the shooting for several months. It's Samo's presence which finally motivated Jackie to do the stunt. In his latest biography, Jackie explains Samo shouted to him, "How long are you going to wait? There's nowhere to park. I have to walk here every day. Are you doing this scene or not?" But according to scriptwriter Lam Chu-wing, who was working at Golden Harvest at the time, Samo's injunction was less cordial. According to him, he said, "Big nose, if you don't jump now, you can forget about making any more films. Up to you to decide which one seems the most fitting to Samo's personality." Let's take some time to study the said stunt. Obviously inspired by Harold Lloyd, it was originally conceived as a direct fall, but after some risk assessment, 2 paravents were added to partially break the fall. Of course, the ground was prepared with tatamis and boxes to soften the landing. In the film, 2 different shots were used. The third shot of the stunt is visible in the outtakes shown at the end of the film. Jackie did the stunt 2 times, and it is his second attempt which concludes the scene. So, who did this third attempt? That is stuntman Danny Chow. He did it no less than 4 times. Of course, he ended up in the hospital and collected 4 times 3,500 Hong Kong dollars for his efforts. Let's not forget that behind any action star, even one as talented as Jackie Chan, there is a team of stuntmen who are ready to replace him and take hits for him to look his best. They are the unknown heroes of action cinema, and Danny Chow was one of them. At the end, with 3 different directors involved, who deserve the credit for the greatness of Project A? For sure, Jackie Chan was the main creative force behind the film. He was at the initiative of the project, he was the star, the action scenes were built around him, and he directed most of it. But we can't deny the contributions made by the other people involved. And the most important one after Jackie is from his big brother Samo, who managed to have his stylistic mark on the film. More minor but still relevant is Edward Tang's involvement. He is the one behind the idea of doing a pirate film, the choice of the historical setting, and the script. Remains one unknown to this equation, and that is the exact contribution of Ting Shan-si in the early time of the project and the shooting. One has to wonder if the fact that Jackie did the sequel without Samo and Yuen-biu was a way for him to state his full parenthood on the franchise. Thank you for having watched this video. I hope you have learned some new information regarding this classic of Hong Kong cinema that is Project A. Don't hesitate to post your questions or comments below. I will do another video to answer them. Until then, I hope to see you back soon on the House of Asian Cinema.